head coach and sporting director Greg Vanney.
Just in case. Trying to get 2 more titles if I can.
Greg, do you have an update on Chicharito, whether or not he's going to be available?
It's not trending like he will be available, but we're still working day to day to see where we're at. But it's he's still we're trying to get some clarity and some imaging and stuff like that just to see what we're fully dealing with. But it'll be a tough one for him.
Was it just a hamstring?
Yeah, it had coming into the week last week. We held him out because there was a hamstring irritation, more or less. There wasn't any sign of something significant. As he worked back into training, he started to still feel a little bit off, and so again, just trying to review back where maybe something is, or if something new, or if what going on. So.
Did it have anything to do with? I think it was one of the games at Coachella, right? He ran and he was feeling.
Yeah, that's when he initially started to feel the symptoms, if you will. So that was the starting point, and then it's just been a work in progress, trying to feel better, to work back into the playing side of things, all that kind of stuff. So now it's just a return to play process.
Timetable wise, if he can't go here, that sets him back probably in a couple of weeks?
Nah, I don't know. I mean, I won't know until we get sort of the imaging today, because like I said before, it was more of like an irritation. There wasn't anything noteworthy really on the scans, and so if it's more of an irritation, it goes back to being kind of day to day. If there's something there, then we have to know more what we're kind of dealing with on that side of things.
Can you talk about a little bit about the addition of URI Russell to your roster, like how you see him playing in your tactics?
Yeah, I mean, Uri is an experienced defensive midfielder. He's hard-nosed. He understands the movements that we want from our defensive midfielders, the positioning side of things. He gives us some depth and some experience, a guy who's won a championship, even in the locker room, on the field in training. He just brings that maturity to the environment. He's got a great relationship with some of our guys right off the bat, which has been good. There's times when I could drop him in and push Gaston a little higher if we wanted to, because Gaston likes to get freed up sometimes. So it gives us a little bit of flexibility inside of the midfield as well.
Greg, there's been this conversation about your 2 strikers and getting them on the field.
Sure.
Can you give us a little preview as to how you've laid things out? I know it's maybe moot if you don't have Chicharito this weekend, but what's the shape and what's your approach?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we always consider. For me, like, shape is not the most important thing. It's us setting up to be able to execute on our principles and the things that we want to do inside of the game, and putting the best players on the field together who can help those things come out on a consistent basis and win games. So whether that involves 2 forwards or a front 3 or something, for me, I'm open and versatile and flexible when it comes to those situations. But the team has to be comfortable with the ball, defensively without the ball, and be able to play in sort of our vision and style of the game. So we've played with different things throughout the course of preseason. We did a few things last year with them. As you said, not everyone is available at the moment, so that may or may not play a factor into it. But it'll be something that we'll see throughout the course of the year. I don't know, no guarantees it's something you'll see every week, that's for sure. But we like having 2 guys. It's a long season. I think it's 50-plus games that we'll probably encounter over the course of this season. So there's a lot of minutes and a lot of goals to be had by all of them, and Preston being one of those as well.
You mentioned adding a title. You had to take on that responsibility while also under some limitations with the punishment that's handed down. Could you talk about how you kind of juggled that task?
Yeah, I mean, in the off-season, you're not coaching the team. You're trying to help build the roster. You're trying to build the vision forward with the group. I'm involved with some of the scouting and laying out some of the profiles of the type of players that we want inside of our puzzle pieces, if you will, as we put our puzzle together. And helping to give the resources to the guys, Jovan and Mikey and the guys that in our network of scouting guys to get out there and try to help us find the right guys. So that's a bit of the off season. Once we knew what we were managing or dealing with as it came to the sanctions, it was to quickly have a plan to try to get back to at least neutral, and then it was how do you create a plan to try to make the team better, and then everything gets fast forwarded a little bit because you don't have specifically a summer window where maybe you wanted to be patient and push some things to the summer. You don't, so that means things have to happen now, and we want to do the best we can to be precise and make good decisions, even though we don't necessarily have a ton of time that we want to make good decisions out of the gate. So we've been very process oriented through this. I think we've acquired quite a few resources, and now it's to finalize and bring the players in who we think can help us to become an even better team and get closer to the title again this year.
How close do you think this roster is to where you want it? And could you speak on? Are you in a position yet to be able to comment on the Brazilian fullback and some of these reports that we've heard?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, he's one of them that's in the mix. That's certainly in the discussion. Hopefully, we're getting closer to closing up that end of things, who our replacement for Julian is going to be. Hopefully that is going to be in days. We probably have 2 to 3 other guys that we are in the process and positions that we want to continue to fill and build out the group. For me, between our young players like Johnny Perez and Jalen and those guys who are taking another step forward this year and the guys that we continue to add, I think the group will have depth. I think the group will have quality. I think there's a clarity inside of what we're doing on the field now that this is year 3 for a lot of the guys who've been around for some time. I think there's a comfort level now within the group, even amongst each other and the locker room and other things that are different. Once you get through this process a little bit, guys tend to start to understand more what their expectations are and how they fit in the group, and all those things are coming around more and more as we continue through this process.
Greg, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but just your thoughts on the new format in terms of a lot of games and where that confidence level is in terms of having that depth. Like, how confident are you that you have as much depth as you do need?
Yeah, I do really think when we fill out our group and we get the pieces in, and ideally you want to stay as healthy as possible. That's another piece of this. But if we stay healthy, we get the pieces that we're trying to get. I feel like we have the depth to be contending in all these different competitions. That's where we want to be ultimately. That's where we believe that big clubs should be, is able to contest and be a contender in all of these different events. As the season progresses, you start to figure out where you are when these things come about and who you want to push out on any given day to get the result. But there's a lot of minutes and a lot of opportunities there for our entire roster. That's one thing that the guys have to really understand this season, that if you aren't chosen one day, you have to be ready for the next one, because things are coming fast and you have to always be ready to step in and help the team to be successful. And we're going to rely on everybody, and I feel that energy is correct inside of the group, that when we're training, everybody is preparing themselves to be impactful as the season continues to progress.
And obviously the cup's the goal, right? But what would be a successful season in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's continuing to take steps forward as a group. Ultimately, winning a championship is another step for us. Again, competing a little bit further in some of these other events, competing for championship inside of one of these other events as well. I would like to see us in Champions League next year. I think we're a club that should be present inside Champions League year in and year out. That should be an objective for us. And I think we should be ultimately closer to the Supporter Shield race, if not at the top of the Supporter Shield race. I think that shows the consistency that we want to get out of our group over the course of 34 games, in a season, is to have less up and downs and have more consistencies over the whole sort of season.
All right, we'll go to Zoom. We'll go to Zoom. We have a question on Zoom. Michele, unmute yourself. Can you go?
Thank you. Hi, Coach. How are you?
All right, thank you.
This year with League Cup, the new playoff format, there is 24 competitions. We're talking about probably 60 games per team. Yet the league hasn't shown any indication of relaxing roster rules, no spending. You're more than a coach in the franchise. How do you see that? How do you feel about that? And what do you expect with this? Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. For one, I like the idea of us having more competitions and more opportunities for players to play. I think that is on par with what's happening in other leagues, between Champions League or Europa or all these different leagues that other leagues play. And I think, again, it gives us opportunity to give more players, get them more involved in the season, to bring players who are younger along, which I think is something that's certainly happening in MLS over the last 5 years. Academies are becoming more, producing more players into the first teams, and I think this gives those players also opportunities to be more involved, which is all part of the natural process. I think there's mechanisms and there's ways inside of our league if you choose to go those routes where you can expand your depth. And there's also ways where you can put all of your money in, front load a team and make it not very deep but very good at the top end. And so I think now as we are, almost 30 teams, 29 teams, you're going to see different teams take different approaches to how they want to try to achieve success, how they define success. I think that's part of the natural evolution of the league. I do think as we get going in this process, I think some of the whether it's money or the restrictions on some of these things will continue to evolve and clubs will have more ability to probably spend or get deeper. I think that will happen over time. We are where we are for right now, but I think the concept is moving in the right direction, and for me I like it inside of our group. We've taken an approach to try to have a deep roster. We want to rely on our academy, and we're trying to bring kids through that. So in all that way, we want to have 28 to 30 players who can have some sort of impact in the course of over the course of 50 to 60 games.
Thanks for your time, Greg.
Yeah.
One more.
Yeah.
So Saturday is a big spectacle, and this is something not every team has to deal with. Is this an extra challenge for you, or is it something you just have to embrace?
No, it is. I think when the concept was brought to us as a club, as an original Galaxy guy who played in the Rose Bowl, whose fan base was based over in the Rose Bowl, I was behind it 100%. I thought this would be amazing. It will show, I think, the growth of the league over the last 27 years since the league started to go there and have maybe close to or 90,000 people at a game in the U.S. to have the newer club into town having a rival game. I really think it will be a spectacle in showing sort of the progress the league has made in many ways. In terms of preparation, it's an interesting one because I think it's given the guys something to really focus. That the season is usually a slow roll. You kind of get yourself going slowly in the season, but with such a game right off the bat, with it being against LAFC, with it being in a stadium that's going to be full, it certainly brings a different level of sort of focus, concentration, things like that, where the season's really going to kick off fast. Now, it's not a slow roll into the year. So I think it's brought focus to the group as they've worked through preseason, but I think for us, we understand too that it's one game of 34, and it is the start of the season, but it's also for us a very important game with the way things ended last year and in terms of us losing at their place, and we were very much in that, to want to come out and start the season right. And we have ambitions to be, as I said, more involved in the Supporter Shield race this year, which means every point matters. Yeah, thank you.